rings, we pound for pound. UFC thrills, stills, nights get loud. Big EQB, that's how we get down.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GRP. Back live after a pre-recorded episode last week, but for good reason. It was my daughter's birthday, the actual day of her birthday. So we went out to dinner and had a good time. So Trent had a good birthday, and we got to celebrate and still got the show out. So hopefully you all enjoyed that one. Hopefully you still caught it, even though it wasn't live. I know every time I'm live, but this time was different, a little bit weird, but has to happen every once in a while. So not a big deal. It's gonna happen again one of the weeks next month, because I have an event I'm going to go watch a live podcast when I'm supposed to be live. So that's really strange. But yeah, I'm gonna pre-record that week as well, so it'll happen again here in the near future, but it's okay. I still like to get the show out, and usually same time, same place, whether it's pre-recorded or live. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll get that in real quick, and hit that notification bell so you know when I'm live. It's the easiest way to know, and it's the best way to find out. So here we are on a Thursday, and ready to talk a whole bunch of MMA, because that's what we do here, obviously. But I have some thoughts on a bunch of different things. If you didn't notice in the title, discussing the state of MMA, just a lot of weird shit happening lately, and just stuff I kind of was listening to and wanted to give my takes on, stuff like that. There was, UFC 315, the pay-per-view last week, so we of course have to recap that and go over it a bit. And we have a new champ, one out of the two championship fights. Do I hear barking? Thought I heard my dog's barking. I do. I always like to make sure nothing's actually going on if I hear the dogs barking. Anyway, yeah, so one of the two championship fights had a change of title, change of champ. So one and new, one and still, but we'll get into that here in a bit. And then yeah, and then we got a preview this week's event, the fight night this week, UFC Vegas 106, happening in Vegas. Obviously, it's at the Apex. Unfortunately, we're still doing that, but it is what it is. At least we have an event. And as much as I hate saying that, I mean, it's not the best. It's not the best card. But there is some good fights on there that I am looking forward to. So can't complain too much. Glad to have fights going on and something to talk about. So I got to be grateful for that. And I know that just sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. Otherwise, this week kind of flew by. Just fucking getting through the week. It's been one of those weird weeks at work where it's like we went from not too busy to like real busy. I have stupid training tomorrow. If anybody knows what MSHA training is, I have to go on mine sites every once in a while. So I have to have the training, and every year you have to do a refresher. I'm not looking forward to that, but it's a break from all dealing with the bullshit craziness of regular work. And breaks it up a little bit, but you got to sit there and participate in some of these classes sometimes. And that, it's just so like cringy. Like nobody really gets anything out of it, right? Except for make the teacher, the director of the class, making sure that you're paying attention and whatever. It's like, why do we do these things? I don't even know. I mean, you could probably you could probably get the same thing out of doing it online, because you're not going to pay that much attention there either. People think because you have to go into a room and stay there and be bound to a stupid chair for 8 hours that you're going to get something out of it, when really everyone's just trying to get through and get through the day and get home and be done with it. So you don't really get much. I mean, I get it. If you've never done it before, it's only your second or third time, you might get something out of it. When you've done it for 10 plus years like I have, it's just kind of like, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. So I feel like if you've done so many consecutive, you should be able to like do a class online and be cool with that. But I get it, you know, there's rules and regulations and all this other bullshit. And I know people get kind of they get kind of comfortable with things, and then you start to forget shit. You get complacent, and sometimes that can be dangerous, especially when you're somewhere like a mine site or something like that. So I guess it is necessary at times. And it's only one class. At least I don't, you know, when you miss a year and you let it expire, you got to do like a 3-day class. And that shit sucks. Especially when you know, you just missed 1 year and you may have done it for 6 to 10 years consecutively before that, but you missed that 1 year and you got to go in and do it all over again. So I don't know. This is as boring as a class is going to be, but I'm just complaining about it right now. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. So I don't have to do regular work, but you know, I always got to deal with the phone calls and any problems that arise, you know, in my break times, I have to go and make sure, because I'm like the lead. So if things happen, sometimes questions need to be answered or decisions need to be made, and I have to do that. So, but yeah, hopefully it'll be quick, and we'll get the day over with and get the weekend started. I'm looking forward to the weekend. You know, we got fights on Saturday. Tomorrow, don't have anything I absolutely have to do tomorrow night, so just go enjoy a dinner with my wife. That's always fun and good. And then I got invited to play golf on Sunday, so I'm going to do that. I haven't played in a few weeks, just because shit's been crazy and busy. So I'm looking forward to that. I definitely want to play some golf. It's been too long, and I'm ready to get around in. So that should be fun. Hopefully I play well and the time off doesn't kill me too much. Other than that, that's about it going on this week. We had a lot of fight announcements happening this week, and some other shit going down in MMA. So that's kind of why I want to start off with that. So before I do that, though, I got to get my sponsor a big shout out. Noctane Smelling Salts, of course, still a sponsor of the show, and I thank them for that because I love the product and I use it all the time. And, you know, we do this spiel every time I'm on here, but, you know, I got to take my quick whiff and get awake and alert. And, yeah, shout out the sponsor. Ooh. Oh my God. That was a strong one. This is the most potent bottle. That's why I had that reaction. Holy shit, that one caught me good though. The effect only, I mean, that harsh effect only lasts for a couple seconds, and then you just feel nice and awake and alert. So it's worth it. My eyes got watery. Because I hit that, I wasn't careful. But you got to be a little careful. But you can get least potent bottles, lesser potent bottles, I should say. So if you hit that QR code right there, it'll take you to their website, and you can check out the selections they have and all the other cool shit they have on the website. It's also there's a link in the description below. I'm sorry, my eyes are watering like crazy. And you can go check it out for yourself. It's a cool site to look at, and it's informative, and it's a good product. So go get yourself a bottle, check it out, and you know, support them because they're sponsoring me, and that's cool. And you watch the show, so go check it out. And it's a fun thing to do. It's cool, and it helps with a lot of things. Powerlifters use it to get that quick adrenaline rush to, you know, get the power moves in. And then I use it a lot because when I'm driving long distances or stuff like that, I tend to feel very sleepy behind the wheel, so it wakes me up. So it's good for that, and it's good to just get awake and alert. You know, you got some tests going on for, you know, end of the school year's coming up, stuff like that. Summer's coming around. You need to wake up a bit and be alert. That's another good thing to use it for. So lots of different ways to use it and reasons to use it for. So go check it out. Noctane Smelling Salts. Appreciate the sponsorship as always. And thank you guys for listening to that every week, because I got to shout them out because they're a sponsor. So yeah, that's it for that. So let's get into what we're here for and talk some MMA. Oh my. There we go. I did not mean to start that over again. I just hit the wrong button because it looked too tempting. Nice big green button was like, let's do this again. Here we go. We got some music coming, but it's different. And here's something else to look at. So here we go. The current state of MMA. The reason why I bring this up, and it's weird because we did have some announcements this week, and it's stuff that you should be excited for if you're an MMA fan, or a UFC fan, I should say, because the UFC released, some info on fights that are happening, that are coming up, and that is what a lot of us have been waiting for with some of these fights. But we're still hanging on for that Jon Jones announcement. Is Jon Jones going to fight Tom Aspinall? We still don't know. Dana White says it's coming. Dana White says it's happening. But as of right now, Jon Jones is in Thailand. Says he's living his best life as he's riding on a motorcycle, doing an Instagram live, because in Thailand, he is doing some sort of, was it Thailand? Or was it, I could be wrong about that. Where the hell was it? I think it was. I don't know. He's somewhere overseas doing an international version of the Ultimate Fighter of some sort. It's not anything to do with the UFC, and it's not the Ultimate Fighter actually, but it's some kind of show that way. And so he says he's not ducking anybody, that he's just living his best life and he's doing what he wants to do right now. They must have paid him. I think it was actually Russia. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember now, but who cares? That's not the point. The point is that he is nowhere. He's not here. He's not in the States, so he's not in a training camp, or maybe he is, but it seems like he's far from booking a fight. So I start with that because that's one of the biggest problems. Right now, we have an interim title in the heavyweight division because I feel like the music's kind of loud, but that might just be me. We have an interim title in the heavyweight division because Jon Jones just can't commit, I guess. He hasn't fought in however long. And Tom Aspinall has the interim title, and that's a fight everybody wants to see, but we just can't get it booked. We just can't get the damn fight booked, and that's part of the problem. And the thing is in the past, the UFC's been known for booking all the fights everybody wants. That's what distinguished the difference between them and boxing when you hear that argument between what's better, boxing or MMA, or who's doing things right, boxing or MMA. And MMA always had the upper hand because they would say, hey, we don't wait 4, 5, 6 years down the road for the matchups that we really want to see to be put together and to happen. But now it seems like that's what's happening. And with Dana White going into doing boxing promotion with Top Rank, or not Top Rank, I don't know why I was thinking Top Rank, TKO Boxing, you wonder, is this, is less of attention being on MMA, on the UFC side? Because he's already got Slap Fight going on that he oversees and does. I'm sure we're gonna get a Contender Series happening soon, so he's got that. I mean, the man is busy as fuck. He always has been, and he always will be, as long as he's doing this kind of shit and being a promoter. But what kind of attention does that take away from getting the matchups we want to see, building the stars that the UFC needs right now, and building up that young talent and really getting them into the UFC and building a career and a name that everyone's going to be attracted to? A Conor McGregor only comes around once in a long while, and those kind of big stars, a GSP, people like Jon Jones, only, as far as star-worthy talent, only come around every so often. And Conor McGregor stands alone in his category because no one has done as much, for as much as I hate to say it, because of how he's been in the recent past, the things that he's gotten himself into and everything that he's doing. It's you have to give him credit for what he's done for the sport, helping it become so mainstream, along with Ronda Rousey did a lot for that aspect as well. but we just don't have those kind of stars right now. And this is played out, you know, everyone's talked about this over and over and over again, but it's part of the bigger picture of a problem with MMA right now. And the other issue is why I have in this graphic, obviously Dana White, because he's the head of everything. He is the leader in promotions with the UFC and everything he does. So that's why I have his picture in here. But obviously the UFC is the biggest one out of all of these. You know, we don't have like Bellator. We don't have, you know, all these other little things that were in play. You know, we were promised GFL, which was Global Fight League, that signed all these big names. So much promise in there for great matchups, for a different organization to watch. You know, we were promised back-to-back nights of fights with a multitude of fights on every card, which might be overkill in some ways, because a lot of people think that the UFC happening every single week is overkill, but not when you have that many people on the roster. So when you have 600 plus fighters on the roster, you kind of have to have a weekly event. And you know what? That keeps everybody that does content on MMA busy, they don't give a shit about that, because they do their own promotion and that's all they count on. That's all they bet on. So they don't really need everyone else that does it. But I'm just saying, in the outside perspective, it keeps people like me and everyone else busy and doing things, because there's an event every single week. But are they all worthy of talking about for time, you know, multiple hours between all the shows? Are they worthy of anything? Well, that's how you start to build the stars, the people that stand out, the people that have the talent, the people that go on long win streaks, the people that defend titles for long periods of time and are dominant and exciting. You have to have that outside perspective from people like me. But I mean, obviously I'm not a big time person, but all the small channels that talk about MMA, and then the big channels that talk about MMA, the big organizations that talk about MMA, the news outlets, the big journalists, all that, you know, that's where all the promotion comes from too. But the UFC does a damn good job of promoting on their own and getting everybody's name out there. But they haven't focused on getting that star quality going. Right now, the UFC is the star. That's how it's kind of always been. And they've always kept the 3 letters as the most important thing, instead of someone being the most important thing, or any couple of or few people being the most important. But the thing is you don't have an organization like this if it's not for the fighters. Now, yes, you can say the fighters are going in and out. There's always going to be a batch of fighters that'll come in and that can do something for you. The cream's going to rise to the top, right? That's what they say. And of course, you know, that's always a possibility. That's always something that can happen, and there's always room for that. But if it's not for the fighters, you don't have this. Those 3 letters don't mean anything. It's Ultimate Fighting Championship, fighting being the key word, and you got to have fighters to fight. You can't just hold those 3 letters can't continue on in the success and the uprise of everything if you don't have the fighters there to do their job, which is fight and entertain. So if you're not paying those guys, they don't feel appreciated. If you're jerking everybody around, not giving a shit and acting like it is what it is and things will just fall into place, that's never going to work either. So why does the UFC seem so complacent with the state of things right now? You know, we just saw UFC 315 and we saw all the preemptive stuff like before the fight about how it seemed like attendance was down, tickets weren't being bought, you know, less than a week before the fight started, or before the fight was supposed to happen. There was a lot of empty seats in that arena. And maybe because it's Canada, who knows? Maybe because they're not bringing a big name to Canada. But I feel like the Canadians showed up and showed out pretty much in this event. Only a couple of them lost out of like 6 or 8 fighters that were on the card that were Canadian. So, I mean, it was a pretty decent event when it came to homegrown talent there. But it's they had 2 title fights, and those 2 title fights, one of them went to this actually both of them went to decision. But one was way more exciting than the other, and I think we know which one that is, the men's fight. Obviously, Shevchenko is a great fighter, and we'll get into it deeper when I get into that recap. But she's not the fighter she used to be, and her opponents don't seem to be on that higher level when they come up against her. Now that might speak to her talent and her dominance, but Alexa Grasso rose to that and beat Shevchenko, and then they came to a draw in the other fight, I believe. Either way, still 2 times Shevchenko held that belt Grasso held that belt against Shevchenko, and they were pretty fun fights. But other than that, Shevchenko hasn't shown all that crazy stuff that she was showing before she, hit these last couple of years. And the women's divisions are just kind of lackluster a bit, and I'd love to see those start thriving again, because I had fun watching the women fighting, and it's just a different aspect of things, but all of these organizations have women, and Ryzen, does Ryzen have women? I don't know. I haven't followed Ryzen that much until recently, because in the past I just didn't hear a lot about it. But that's the thing. We have PFL, we have one championship, and we have Ryzen, and then we have the UFC. That's really all that's going on right now in MMA. Now you have the lower level organizations, like LFA is pretty much a feeder league for the UFC. You got Cage Warriors. You got, there's so many little ones, but you just don't hear about them that much unless somebody is coming up from there, and then you hear those names. But then there's the hardcore fans. Like, I'm maybe not as hardcore, but like Combat Sports Today, those guys go deep. They go deep, and they follow a lot of this stuff, and and maybe that's because that's what their specialty is. And they go deep with that stuff. They follow everything, and they report about everything. Basically, they cover everything. They're interviewing guys from everywhere and girls from everywhere. So that's pretty dope about Combat Sports Today, who I collabed with for the interview I did. And I respect them for all that, because I catch any of the news coming from their social media, from a lot of these other organizations that I don't follow closely, because I follow the UFC the closest. It's just because I've done it for so long. I've followed the UFC for so long. And I've gotten into a little bit into PFL and one, but PFL right now, their problem is they're losing fighters left and right. And that's because these fighters are not happy with what's happening over there, since Bellator was absorbed by them. So all these Bellator fighters that are supposed to just integrate with PFL and become PFL fighters are not happy with what's happening, because the PFL just can't seem to handle it. They can't seem to get everything together to allow for these fighters to have the fights that they're supposed to have, fulfill those contracts. They're trying to drop the money on them. They already dropped money on, when I say drop, I mean lowered the money for the tournament, the winnings and stuff like that. So when it comes down to it, the PFL feels like they took on more than they could handle. And so you're just seeing this somewhat of a mass exodus from PFL, with all these fighters that were there and could have been big names for them, and instead they're just leaving. And the PFL is just saying, go ahead. And that's fine. That I can understand them saying that, like, if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here, kind of shit. But you gotta fight for some of these guys, like Patchy Mix. You're letting Patchy Mix go like he's some lower level rookie that doesn't matter. Patchy Mix has potential. Patchy Mix has showed us his talent. Patchy Mix has shown us what he can do, and how much better he can get, and how he's continuing to get better. But you just let him go like he's nothing. That's weird. That's weird. You let Pitbull, who was a star in Bellator, and yeah, he may be older and he may not be able to fight the way he used to fight. Just judging by his last fight, his first fight in the UFC, it just seemed like a little much for him, but it could be a fluke. He could come back and dominate. You never know, but he is getting up there in age. He's had a lot of fights, but they just let him go too. He was unhappy. He was outright blatant with his dislike for the way things were going, and he got out, and good for him, and we're happy because it's like everyone's been wanting to see Pitbull in the UFC forever. But is the UFC any better than PFL, or the fact that you're going to get a lot of fights? I don't know, unless you're a big name or unless you're in the position to kind of be relied on for all those fights. I don't know that you're gonna get that many more fights. And on top of that, they like to play a little dirty and announce things that you don't even know about yet, and you find out in social media. You find out from people that follow MMA closely before you even knew about it. That's crazy. But that's been a big thing that's happened throughout the history of all of these organizations. So that's a little bit weird, and I don't understand that part either. But you got to keep these fighters happy, and I don't think a lot of them are asking for too much, especially when the UFC thrived back in the day, and very few fighters would speak out against what was going on at the UFC because they knew the potential that could be had there. But recently, it just doesn't feel like that potential is a potential anymore. Yeah, you're fighting for the most well-known organization, the most mainstream organization in the U.S. at least, and across the world, for in a lot of ways. But you talk to anybody around the world, or especially in the U.S., and they know what the UFC is. They at least have an idea. I mean, there's history. Look at behind me is history from the UFC. All these posters are old posters, except for maybe the one over this shoulder, which is my left shoulder. You're looking at it at your right. That's a bit newer. Conor versus Cowboy. Bit lackluster, but impressive win for Conor regardless. And his last win actually in the UFC. So, but yeah, there's so much history there. And if you look back at that history, of course it wasn't perfect. And then, of course, there might be more opportunity for things these days than there was back then. But it just doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And it just doesn't seem like it's growing more in the way that it used to grow. A lot of people can't tell you who the champions are in all the divisions anymore like they could back in the day. All the hardcore fans would be like spouted off like nothing. And now there's so many events, it's so oversaturated, there's so many fighters that it's hard to keep up. It's hard to know everything off the top of your head, which is fine. It doesn't have to be the other way. But the things don't stand out as much anymore. You can't just say anybody's name and without saying that they're in the UFC and have someone be like, that's a fighter. So there's just a lot of a lack of all of this. If you look at one championship, they've kind of broken away from MMA a little bit. Their cards used to be a lot of MMA, and it seemed like they were really bringing up some people in there. When they had Mighty Mouse, there was exciting matches going on with him, mixed rules matches and all kinds of other stuff, because that's why what makes one championship unique. They do Muay Thai, they do grappling, they do kickboxing, they do all this different stuff, but they would mix it in so well with the MMA, and now we have fighters pulling out of one championship too. And Demetrius is retired, so that there goes that. And then we've heard stories of other people just being unhappy at one, and different contract issues and money issues, but there's always going to be those. But when people start pulling out and you start hearing the same story over and over again, you start to wonder. And that's PFL's biggest problem right now. And one had a little bit of that problem too, and they just don't seem to be outright in the running for being like a close number 2 to the UFC. The PFL was the closest, and they're still so far away from the UFC. It's not even funny. They got rid of their, they got rid of some of the stuff that was kind of holding them back, but they're still doing these tournaments. And they're still hard. It's still hard to figure out like when are the fights. You don't know as much as you know for the UFC, and you don't know what people are fighting for. You don't know who the champs are. You get Bellator champs that you absorbed, and yet they come over and they're basically just another fighter to you, and that's how they feel, and that's how they're presented. So they're not. They didn't come over and be like, okay, let's fight you right away, and see if you can get the belt from our champ right now. And I understand that there's different ways of doing things, and there's methods and levels to the way things have to work. Like, hey, we have people in line, we have a ranking system, but you gotta, being an organization like that, taking on another organization and their roster, you have to figure those things out. I couldn't do it, but I'm also not saying that I'm gonna. I don't have that money, I don't have that backing, I don't have all of that. But from the outside looking in, being a big fan and someone who covers the sport on a weekly basis and follows all of this, it just seems like they're just dropping the ball. And the problem with that is where do UFC fighters go when they're out of the UFC? Whether it's temporarily because they dropped like 3 in a row, which is usually the thing with the UFC, unless you're a big name or somebody that brings a lot of eyes to the organization. If you drop 3 in a row, you're gonna get cut. That's always been the thing. So when guys like would get cut, they'd have to go somewhere else for a little while, win a couple, prove that they can win still against higher levels, and then come back to the elite and try it again. And that's how you would prove that you can come back. But now it's like, used to be go to Bellator, go to PFL, go here, go there. There's a couple different options. And instead of it growing, instead of there being more organizations out there, there's becoming less and less. And Ryzen is an old school style of an organization where because they're based out of Japan, and if you want to go fight over there, that's dope, because there's a lot of history out there, especially with Pride. The owner of Ryzen is actually was actually one of the owners from Pride as well. So they have a lot of the same kind of things that they would do, that they do at Ryzen, that they used to do there. I mean, look, we had Ryzen versus Bellator a couple of years ago during New Year's. Over a New Year's weekend, we had an event where it was Ryzen versus Bellator, which was pretty fun. The walkouts were dope. There was like this samurai versus Spartan type theme, which of course, a theme is, that's weird, but when they take it as far as they did and have the kind of walkouts that they had with the kind of just showmanship that they had on there, it was dope, because people were able to show who they were and have a personality, instead of just coming out and the only thing that distinguishes the difference between you and every other fighter is your walkout song and the color of your uniform. That's really it. Yeah, you got different hair, cool. Yeah, you got different colored hair. You're okay, cool. Yeah, you got a bunch of tattoos. Who doesn't? You're black, brown, or white. I mean, that's normal. That's natural. It's like you can't stand out because the UFC doesn't allow it. It's not part of their uniform. You can barely hold a flag. You can't even be grateful and proud of your home country, or your where you come from, where your roots are, because there's problems with that. and Dana White's the furthest from being politically correct in a lot of ways, but at the same time, the politics are well mixed in, considering he was a part of the Republican Party and speaking for Donald Trump and all that. So politics are involved now, and it's whatever. But some of that shit gets in the way. And then you have all this other shit. We've all wanted some kind of, Zuffa boxing was a thing for a long time. He wore a shirt one time that said Zuffa boxing, and everyone was like, holy shit, they're getting into boxing. And then it went away. and it was just never talked about again. Now he's actually in it, and everyone's like, uh-oh, because not only has Dana has already kind of separated himself. You see him at less and less events, or he's at the event, but he's not at the press conference after. When he's at the press conference after, he gets like a piece of paper handed to him, and he goes, well, the attendance was blah blah blah, record breaking, yeah, and then oh, you guys have been waiting for International Fight Week announcements. So and so's fighting so and so. Who's got the first question? It's like, what kind of a fucking announcement is that? And of course, he didn't do that this week, but he went on an Instagram live with his fucking. Why do his eyebrows look weird lately? I don't understand that. He went from being beat red to looking pretty healthy to next thing you know, he's got these weird eyebrows and he just looks like he doesn't want to be there ever. And he's just like, if he's not doing the "what's up everybody" and then talking about what he wants to talk about, then he's just like, hey, so here's what we got. And he's just sitting there bored. So what is he involved? Like, what's up, Trent? Trent's in the chat laughing at me or laughing with me. Either way, it's funny. But what he seems disinterested. So how are we supposed to be super excited and interested in everything when he comes out like that? So all these announcements are great, and we got some fights we've been wanting, but also we had to wait and wait and wait. Like we're just over a month away from International Fight Week, and we just got the announcement. I know, Trent, it's funny. Dana's easily impersonated because of just it's either outlandish or it's boring. But yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing, what I'm trying to get at here is we want the fucking fights. What happened to telling fighters, so you want to be a UFC fighter, this is what the fuck you got to do, and stop the bullshit, instead of just glazing fucking John Jones about being the best ever and fucking telling everybody, ear fucking everybody with how much you love John fucking Jones, who says, I don't want to fight right now, I just want to fucking do whatever I want. Like, shut the fuck up and fight. Just do that. If you are ready to be done and you're happy with where you're at, then fucking get the one fight over with or whatever, or vacate the fucking title and go live your happy life that you're talking about living. What the fuck are we doing? And then I hear people saying, oh, he doesn't have to fight. He's the champ. He could do this, he could do that. Well, guess what? You're the fucking champ because you fight. So fucking fight. Fight Tom Aspinall. You want to complain about people calling you a fucking duck and all this other bullshit? Get off your stupid ass and fight. You're not injured. You're not in jail. You might be on parole, maybe. I don't know. You're claiming you're living your best life. Well, fucking fight. That's what gave you that life. Fight or get the fuck out. I mean, that's just, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about John Jones and fucking Tom Aspinall. And I feel bad for Tom Aspinall because the motherfucker's, he's what's happening to him is what happened to Michael Chandler, waiting around for the fucking bag to hit because he's gonna fight the big guy. He's gonna fight the fucking guy that's gonna bring him the money. Fuck that. Not to mention he's been the interim title for over a fucking year, waiting and waiting and waiting. They want him to continuously he already defended the interim title. The fuck? What are we doing? And then you got these other organizations that can't get their shit together long enough to hold on to the great fighters that they have and nurture them and bring them up and fucking have them worthy of saying, our fucking champs can beat your champs, when you talk to the biggest organization in the world right now for MMA. So then what are you doing? Like this should be a competition. That's when it's fun. A competition between all these organizations, or a collaboration of us against you. Let's do it and see who's better for bragging rights. Once a year, do it. Fucking do it. Oh, that's gonna hurt your fighter? No, it's not. Because guess what? If he comes back to comes back and fights the people in that organization that he belongs to and dominates with those motherfuckers, he's still the best. Just because he didn't beat that guy. Well, guess what? Big rematch next time, because he's still dominating in this organization So let's see what he does against the other guy in the other organization. But you can't even hold, these organizations can't even hold on long enough and hold on to their great fighters for long enough to be able to even bring that idea to the table. You know, PFL has Francis Ngannou, and for the longest time they were trying to get John Jones versus Francis. Dana's like, hell no way, that's not happening. I'm not sharing. I'm not fucking co-promoting with anybody. But then he's like, oh, we'll let Conor McGregor fight fucking Floyd Mayweather because fucking money. So Islam gonna sub JDM by Kimura Americana. Damn, already with the predictions, huh? Simply kudos. Okay, so you're an Islam fan. That's one of the announcements, and I'll get to that here in a few minutes. I'm ranting about this shit, and I haven't even got to the main stuff. But yeah, Islam versus JDM is gonna be interesting for sure. So here's the bottom line. I just want these fucking, I want the big fights to happen. I want the best fighters to fight the best fighters. And we need to stop all this bullshit. UFC, pay the motherfuckers so they can fight. If John Jones wants this much, maybe don't give him exactly that much. Maybe give him something close, something that'll make him happy. Get him in there, get the fight. If he wants to be done after that, let him be done. Let's move the fuck on. And let's keep moving. And let's keep bringing up new fighters like we used to. And these other organizations need to learn how to hold on to people that are worth the shit and become an actual somewhat close competition for the UFC, because otherwise we're just gonna have the UFC and they're gonna dominate everything, do whatever they want, and fucking then what? So what the fuck's gonna happen to MMA? It's just gonna go away because we're gonna have this one organization that just does the same thing over and over and over again, and there's no excitement, there's not even any competition. So then it just becomes stale. So anyway, opposing all of that, we got some exciting announcements this week. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. This all hinged on what happened at UFC 315, and that was, you know, whether Bilal was able to beat Jack Della Maddalena or if Jack was going to become the new champ. And we know now what happened. And if you don't know, now you know, because I'm Dana White. But you know now that Jack Della is the new champ, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But with that being said, they finally announced, because they were waiting on that fight, because Ilya said he wouldn't fight Bilal, so he's not gonna move up and wait and fight Bilal if Bilal continued to be the champ. Whatever, I get it, you know, your teammates, training partners, you have history, you respect each other, whatever, but that could have been a good fight. But he doesn't want to do it. So nobody would announce anything or give us anything because we needed to wait for Bilal and JDM to fight and see what happened. Well, JDM's the new champ. So guess what? Islam's going to have to vacate his title. That's what was announced. He's vacating his title, just like Ilya vacated his title and moved up in weight. Now, whether the UFC wants double champs or not, it's sure showing like right now they don't, because they're making everybody vacate if they want to move up. Ilya, understandable, because he said making the weight was too hard and he's done enough, you know, to satisfy himself, and he wants to challenge himself more by going up in weight and fighting the bigger fighters. And that's great because he has the talent to do that. But fighting Charles Oliveira for the vacant 155 title, I don't know that that's the best case scenario, but we all love Charlie Olives, man. He's dope. He's a badass fighter. He's an ex-champ, and he's looking to become a champ again. But Ilya is on a tear, and he's definitely on the bigger side of his weight class that he was a champ in, and that's why he's moving up. So he's big for featherweight. He's having trouble making the weight. He's doing the right thing by moving up, and that's fine. And he has to vacate his title. So Islam decides he's going to vacate his title and move up in weight himself to become a double champ. Or maybe not a double champ, because I don't know. There was a way to distinguish the difference, but a two division champion, maybe not simultaneously, because he has to give up his belt. So Ilya's talking all this shit about how, or everybody's talking shit about how Islam's ducking Topuria now, which again, I get why Topuria moved up in weight, but they both did the same thing. They vacated their titles and moved up in weight, and now they're challenging for the next title. And that's great and that's fun, But, I feel like Ilya did have other people he could have gone through before doing this. But if he's having trouble with the weight, instead of compromising the events and compromising the night of fights, he's going to move up in weight. We saw he seemed to struggle in that last fight of his, but we don't know how much. He says it was too tough of a weight cut and he wants to get out before he does damage to his body. Seemingly, that's the best thing to do. And it makes sense. But he didn't clear out his division, but he was close. But Islam seems to have beaten everybody. But people will argue that and say that, he beat a 45er for 2 out of his, however many defenses he had. So a lot of people don't see it that way, and that's fine. Everyone's going to have their opinion. But in the end, this can be a fun fight. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. That could be a fun fight. We finally know what's happening with Ilia because he's vacated his title for it's been a while now that he vacated. It became official the last pay-per-view with Volkanovski versus Lopez fighting for the vacant title, and Volk won. And that's great because we all love Volk. Lopez needs a little bit more experience and a little more time in the cage. I feel like he was a little bit too quick in there, getting thrown in for that title. Seemed like he was ready, but his strength of schedule and his overall experience says different, and it showed in the fight. And you get a vet like Volkanovski, and he's there fighting for what he's been fighting to get back to since he lost his title, and he's hungry, and he did it, and that's great because we love Volk. So now Topuria moving up, fighting Charles Oliveira, and that's a fun fight. So I'm okay with that. Let's do it. This is happening 3/17, which is next month, I believe. Yeah. So that's happening International Fight Week. So that we were waiting on that because International Fight Week's almost always really big cards, really fun fights, and a lot of people are kind of upset with this one. But the other fight on this card for the second title fight on this card will be Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. And we've known Kai Kara France was going to be fighting for the title soon just because of his come up and his rise. He had a little bit of an injury issue for a little while that kept him out, but now he's back up there and he's fighting for the title. Pantoja's had a few defenses under his belt, and he's looked, pretty good, but he's always in wars. So there's always that chance that somebody can catch him. And Kai Kara France hits pretty damn hard for his weight class. So this could be a fun fight too. So there's 2 title fights happening. International Fight Week. We have one other pay-per-view before this, and that's going to be the Merab versus Sugar Sean for that rematch, as well as Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. And all these fights are fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited for a lot of these. But the cards overall, man, like the supporting cast is not so supportive. And that's what sucks a little bit. So it's always a toss-up of what you're going to get. You're not looking like, holy shit, I can't wait for this card, because you're looking more like, holy shit, I can't wait for this fight. Because you're really just looking at the top 2 fights thinking those are the best. And that's kind of the problem with what I've been talking about. In the end, though, on the surface level, I am excited for these fights. I'm glad we finally got these announced. So the rest of the card for UFC 317 on June 28th, the second pay-per-view of June, because we get one on the 7th as well, here's the rest of the card. A lot of people are unhappy with the rest of the card, but it is what it is. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov could be fun. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Moicano's a fun fighter to watch, man. Beneil can be boring, but if he comes out swinging, man, this could be a bloodbath, and it could be fun, because we've seen both of them go to war. Both of them, fight through adversity and get big wins, or just beat the living shit out of their opponent, and you have fun watching it. So that could be a great fight. Joanata Diniz versus Justin Tafa. That's a toss-up. Tafa finishes fights early. Diniz has as well. but if it could become a snooze fest if it goes too long. Brendan Royval versus Manel Kopp, that can be very fun. You got number 1 ranked versus number 6. Brendan Royval has fought for the title and lost against Pantoja, but he's still up there, the number 1 ranked fighter in that division. And Manel Kopp has been on a tear lately, even though he's had a little bit of lackluster in some of his fights, but his last fight he looked good in. So that could be a fun fight. Those guys at the flyweight division can be exciting. It's fast paced, so it can be very fun. Then we got Jack Hermanson versus RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez, banger. I feel like that's going to be a great fight. And then you have Vivian Araujo versus Tracy Cortez, the hottie, coming in. Happy to see Tracy Cortez fight again. Yeah, Trent loves Tracy Cortez as well. And yeah, she's an Arizona girl, so I love that. And yeah, I mean, she's a great fighter too. And it looks like she's locked in. I've seen her in a couple interviews recently on a podcast, the Jackson podcast she was on. But yeah, against Araujo, that could be a fun fight too. So that's happening International Fight Week, June 28th. That was all laid out for us this past week. And then 317. Oh, I'm sorry, not 317. 319, which is a couple after that. Let's see what's happening. 318. Oh, 318 is the Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier fight happening in New Orleans. That's going to be dope. They haven't really laid out that card yet. If you look at UFC events on Google, you'll see that the only fight there is Dustin and Max, but that's for the BMF title, so that's going to be fun. But after that, we have 319, and you got this fight, Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. And that's a fun fight. We've been waiting for that fight to be matched up, and now we got it. So that's great. I feel like Dricus has been pretty dominant, and he's defended his belt a couple times now, and he's looked good doing it. Ever since he got his nose fixed, he's been on a fucking tear, obviously, because he got the title and he's defended it, and everyone that we've doubted him against, he's shown out and done well. So we were waiting on this matchup because Chimaev is just so dominant with his grappling and wrestling, and he can strike too, and he goes to war with people, and he's comes out there saying, I kill all you, I kill everybody. I smash you, and I smash you. And it's fucking funny. He's entertaining, he's a great fighter, but he has the travel issues. So who knows how this is gonna go down or where it's gonna happen even, but at least we have this matchup, and that's an exciting one as well. So we got some good matchups, and now we're gonna have Islam versus Jack Della Maddalena, which I should have put that one together too, because that's gonna happen. I don't know why I skipped that one. I guess it's because JDM just won, so we were just kind of waiting to see. But Islam is vacating his title and fighting JDM, which he wouldn't have done. We would have gotten Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria had Bilal defended his title, because Islam was not going to fight Bilal and Bilal was not going to fight Islam. So Islam would have stayed down in his weight class that he was currently in, and defended his title against Ilia Topuria. So that would have been fun. But he's moving up, ducking or not, running from him or not, that's what's happening. So Islam Makhachev versus JDM happening at a later date. I guess that's why I didn't put anything up there, because we don't even know when it's happening. Obviously JDM just fought last week, so it's hard to say, oh, this is happening at this time, because obviously he just fought. So we need to give him time and let the training camps happen and all that shit. So good fight announcements here. I've spent almost an hour in just combat sports news, so I should move on. But before I do, Vitor Belfort is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame in the Pioneer Wing. That was announced during UFC 315. So that's cool, because Vitor, the Phenom, lots of history with the UFC, had his issues with PEDs and testosterone and all that shit, but still had some really bad fights too, where he got knocked the fuck out. But man, is it exciting watching him fight. for all those years, and watching him get emotional and break down a bit while they were announcing him being an inductee for the Hall of Fame this year was, it was moving, it was touching, it was cool. It was cool to see. Just like when Robbie Lawler was tearing up, man, I was like, I gotta hold back my tears. Vitor, not so much, because I've been a fan of Vitor, but not as invested as I was with Robbie Lawler. But he was the UFC light heavyweight champion until he lost to John Jones. No, not John Jones. What am I talking about? That was Shogun. I forgot who he lost to. God damn it. I just had it in my head and I said John Jones, and threw me all off. Anyway, UFC 12 heavyweight tournament champion, most first round finishes in the UFC history with 13. So, I mean, he did a lot of big things, and now he's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So it's badass. Congrats to Vitor. Let's move on to the recap of UFC 315 now that I just talked all kinds about that shit. I just had to get my thoughts out there. It was just one of those things. It was bugging me a little bit, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. It was just one of those things. I heard discussions about it earlier today and over the past week, and I was just like, man, I got to sort this out in my own brain, and this is what I have this show for, just talk about MMA and the things that are happening. So I had to do it. All right. So we had two title fights here. Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena, and Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. Both title fights happened. Co-main and main event for this fight happening in Canada. But let's take a look at what happened in the prelims first. Starting at the prelims started with a bang. This was a fun fight. It ended quickly, 1 minute and 4 seconds into the first round. Begzat Almakhan versus Brad Katona. Katona, being the Canadian here, unfortunately loses the first fight of the night in Canada, but he's a two-time Ultimate Fighter winner, and it just seems like once he gets into the UFC, he doesn't have the same success. He's able to get through all of the adversity and the quick training camps and the back-to-back weight cuts in the Ultimate Fighter, but when he gets to the UFC, he just can't seem to step up to the level of competition that he gets put up against, and he just can't seem to string together a lot of wins to move up like a lot of other Ultimate Fighter winners have, and he's won the Ultimate Fighter twice. So it's tough for him, and this one was real tough for him because he got knocked out by an uppercut from Almakhan, as you can see in that top picture, and then he gets goes out and gets finished on the ground, and we get a first round finish in the first fight of the night. So that was fun, exciting way to start the night. And we continue. The next fight went to decision between Daniel Santos and Zhang Yang Li. But it was a fun fight to watch. As you can see, Santos throwing all kinds of knees, flying knees, and just connecting with everything. And it was just a fun fight to watch for the second fight of the night. The next one was quite possibly the best knockout of the night. We had Marc-Andre Barriault versus Bruno Silva. Marc-Andre Barriault gets a performance of the night bonus for the crazy elbows that he landed on Bruno Silva, which also possibly left an indent on his head from one of those elbows that he dropped him with, kind of looking like the Cyborg, what was his name? Forgot. The male Cyborg got knocked out by MVP with a flying knee, and he got hit in the forehead, and it just caved his forehead in, so it actually broke his skull, which was nuts. The scars he has from the surgery he had to have for putting plates in his head was insane, and I don't think he's fought since. I don't think he will either. I don't know. But it sounds like Bruno Silva got away with not so much damage. They did take him out on a stretcher, as you can see. Oh shit, I pushed the wrong button. As you can see here, getting pulled out on a stretcher, and sounds like he's okay though. I haven't heard anything saying that he wasn't okay. So I guess it was just a bad knockout, and it looked really bad. But he got knocked out cold. He was out for a bit, and yeah, it was a nasty one. But it was exciting. And Marc-Andre Barriault, you know, he had a tough time a couple fights ago with the fight against oh shit, he was on a 3-fight losing streak until this one. He got finished twice by Joe Pyfer and Dustin Stoltzfus, and then lost a split decision to Chris Curtis as well. But I believe the Joe Pyfer fight, he got knocked out bad in that one. Oh man, my webpage here is going nuts with pop-ups. Damn it. I don't know why Tapology has these issues, but they do. So anyway, Marc-Andre Barrio kills that 3-fight losing streak with a big win over Bruno Silva for another first round finish. And then we switch it back up and get a decision. Here's what I was trying to show. Navajo Sterling versus Ivan Erslan. I mean, it wasn't a bad fight, but it kind of slowed things down. You know, we get 2 big KOs and a fun decision win, and then we slow it down a little bit with this one. All 3 rounds, unanimous decision win. Navajo Sterling gets that win over Ivan Erslan in the light heavyweight division. And then it picked up a little bit with this Bukauskas and Ian Cutelaba fight. Somewhat close because it was a split decision here with Modestas Bukauskas getting the win over Cutelaba. And, you know, some fun moments in that fight, but nothing crazy. And then we get to another finish and another fun fight. The women showed up. We get the former champ Jessica Andrade getting rear naked choked by Jasmine Jastovicius, showing up and showing out for the home crowd, finishing this one 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the first round. And man, she looked so dominant. It was a great fight to watch. I mean, Jasmine is just, she has a lot of potential, and I feel like she's gonna go a long ways if she keeps on this path that she's on now. She hasn't lost since, well, it was 2023 in September. She lost to Tracy Cortez, but before that she was on a 2-fight win streak, and after that, since that loss, she is now on a 5-fight win streak with wins over Priscilla Cachueta, Fatima Klein, Ariana Lipsky, Mayra Buena Silva, and now Jessica Andrade. So only 2 of those fights were by decision. The rest were finishes, all of them by submission, 2 of them by Darce. And now we get this rear naked choke over the former champ Jessica Andrade. Heavy hitter, but Jasmine just neutralized her, took her down, and got the position and choked her out quickly in the first round. So that was a fun one. And yeah, Jasmine was hyped, and it's always fun to, I actually don't, I don't like her voice much. It kind of bugs me. But it's always fun to see how excited she is and what she says after the fights. So that was a good one to watch. Next up, we had another finish by another Canadian. Mike Malott gets the big win in the second round over Charles Radke, Chuck Buffalo. As you can see, Mike Malott got touched a little bit. He's got a little bloody nose there. But yeah, he got the best of Charles Radke in this one. 26 seconds into the second round, gets a TKO and gets the big win in Canada. And him and Jasmine are teammates too, so those were 2 big back-to-back wins, and it seems like they do well when they fight on the same card, because they both have gotten a few big wins while they fought on the same card together. So that's a fun, it's kind of reminiscent of Patty Pimblett and Meatball Molly when they were fighting together when they were first coming up and getting wins together and celebrating together. It's just fun to watch. That brings us to the main card. We had Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Prepolek. And Saint Denis coming off of some losses of his own. He was on, well, no, so he had 2 big losses. The knockouts against Dustin Poirier, he got knocked out, and then the doctor stoppage because he got just smashed by Renato Moicano. In between that, he had a unanimous decision win over Mark Diakese, which I keep forgetting about because those other 2 were so memorable. But he comes back after a loss over Moicano, a bad loss. He comes back and gets his big win against Kyle Prepolek. Winds up getting him in an arm triangle choke for submission in the second round, and gets the big win there to improve to 14-3. And we bring it after that. Here's your submission by BSD with that arm triangle choke. And Prepelic, I mean, Prepelic was looking all right in the beginning, but and he looks tough, and he looks like he's gonna bounce back pretty good and quick. But yeah, just BSD was out there ready to get a big win and try to put those big nasty losses behind him. So now we move on back to the women. Natalia Silva versus Alexa Grasso, another former champion. And dude, Natalia Silva, undefeated in the UFC. She is she's now, well, of course now it doesn't want to show me right away. It's all right, I'll look here. She's now 7-0. So coming into this fight, she was 6-0 in the UFC. And I would say she didn't have the biggest names on her record, but still undefeated. She beat Jessica Andrade as well in her last fight. Vivian Araujo, Andrea Lee, Victoria Leonardo, and Teresa Bledna. And she beat Jasmine Jasovicius. So she had some names in there. But, you know, she's 6-0 coming into this fight, fighting the not that long ago champ in her division, Alexa Grasso, with the great boxing that she has and the good submissions. You know, she beat Valentina, who's the current champ. And yeah, Grasso just didn't look herself. She was kind of hit a wall with Silva. Silva, nonstop footwork, moving all around, bouncing up and down, back and forth, left to right, just not staying stagnant in one place, keeping her head off that center line. And Grasso couldn't put together any combinations like she normally does to set up any takedowns. When she would try takedowns, Silva wasn't there for him. She's just moving. She's too fast. She's in and out with her punches. Didn't look like she's stringing much together. And then next thing you know, she starts getting some great hits in. And landing some shots on Grasso, and actually bangs her up pretty good, as you can see some of the damage in that lower picture. And then her kicks are fucking killer. Like, she's so fast with her kicks, and she sneaks them in, like, just it's impressive. Her kicks are impressive. Leg kicks, but she throws a lot of high kicks and body shots, and she's just quick with it. So between the fast footwork and the fast kicks, she's a force. And this is somebody who they're already talking about, you know, challenging for the title against Shevchenko, especially with the way that Shevchenko, we know the possibilities that Shevchenko has. She has those great kicks too. We've seen her be extremely fast in the past, but it just doesn't seem like she's there right now. So this could be a tough fight for her against Silva, but we'll see if that's next or what comes up next for Shevchenko. All she had to say was that, you know, she needed some time. She wanted to, you know, get off of this high that she's on right now, settle in, and then be able to think with a clear mind. And, you know, I don't blame her. So she didn't have a whole lot to go with. Do you think Grasso has already passed her peak in her career? Hey, that's Senya. What's up, Senya? I don't think she's passed yet, but I feel like she's met her match. Like, she needs to find that spot that takes her back to getting over that little hump. She hit a plateau of some sort, I guess. And her boxing is great. And I think that's what carries her a lot, because that, you know, that's what always has been her big thing, is that great boxing that she has. The combinations she can put together and the angles that she works are fantastic. But if she can't find her way in, she gets frustrated, and that's when things go downhill for her. But yeah, we see this a lot when somebody's a champ and then they lose it, especially when they've had such a battle like she did with Shevchenko, where, you know, they fought 3 times in a row. She hasn't thought about anybody but Shevchenko, and now she's coming off a loss where she lost her title, and she's fighting a phenom like Silva, who is just up and coming. She's so talented, and she's undefeated, and she's on a tear, and Grasso just had nothing for her. She wasn't ready for anything like that. Even though she's the next champ, she should be ready for anything, but I feel like that was too much, too fast. and I feel like she has potential to get back up and do something, but I don't 100% know that she will. So you might be right, Senya. She might be past her peak. She might have to just look for those fun fights now and try to make some money, but there's not a lot of that in the women's division right now, so that's what's tough. But I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what she has. We'll see how she bounces back, because that's the biggest thing. How do you bounce back from losing your title? Well, she just showed us how she's gonna do in her first fight, so let's see if she can get it together and fix that. I need someone to knock out Valentina. Well, Silva might not knock her out, but I think Silva has what it takes to beat Valentina. But there's a lot of stuff on the horizon there, so we'll see. I don't know that anybody really in that division right now has the power to knock out Valentina like we've seen Valentina knock people out, but you never know. So someone always tends to make their way out of nowhere and do something like that. Jasmine Jasudavicius, we just saw her choke out Jessica Andrade, and she has potential. I don't know that she has the most power, but she definitely is slick on the ground with all those submissions that she has. So that's another person that's in line and a possibility for Shevchenko. I do think Shevchenko's coming to the end. She's just not fighting like she used to, and I feel like she's gotten to a point where maybe it's just not as thrilling for her anymore. So she needs somebody to bring that back out of her. It felt like that a little bit with Grasso, but it was still a little lackluster. It's still not the Valentina of old that we saw with switch kicks knocking people out and shit like that. So maybe you'll get your wish soon. Not sure. But let's move on to Aiemann Zahabi versus another legend and ex-champion, Jose Aldo. This was a tough fight to watch in the manner of how the outcome, because it was a little bit close. It looked like Aldo was winning in the beginning, and but Aiemann is just a beast, man. He turned it up at the end, and he really started getting to Aldo, but Aldo had Aiemann in I think it was the end of the second round where he knocked him down. And then as Aiemann Zahabi's getting up, he fucking soccer kicks him in the head, just barely a legal kick, and fucking Zahabi falls backwards. You think, oh shit, Aldo's gonna jump on him and this is over. Aiemann Zahabi fucking survived somehow and was able to fight through it. And when they got up, Aldo looks at the clock and there's over 2 minutes left, and you just saw him look deflated. So he was done at that point, especially knowing what the outcome. He still fought hard with the rest of the fight, but it just wasn't the same. He looked gassed. He kind of showed his age and his mileage on himself with all the fights that he's had and how long he's been in the game. So in the end, he did retire, or he said he retired. It was a little bit murky, but he was saying that it's over. And if that's the case 100%, then Jose Aldo, for your second retirement, I say thank you for all the great fights, all the years of championships, and the exciting shit that you did in this sport. And then watching him go outside and start boxing after retiring from MMA, and looking good in boxing as well. So maybe he'll jump back into boxing a little bit just to get some action in there. Who knows? Because he did look great in boxing. So maybe we'll get some more of that. But as for now, I think he's done with MMA, and I believe he's pretty much retired. So good luck to Jose Aldo, the legend, already in the UFC Hall of Fame. We appreciate everything you did for the sport, and thanks for all the fun fights. So that brings us to the co-main event. Valentina, oops, I missed one. That was just Aiemann Zahabi getting the win. You can see Aldo being upset by that, because it was pretty close, and a lot of people did think that Aldo barely pulled it out, but I think the right person won, and it's just that time for Aldo. So moving on to the co-main event, we have Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. And Manon Fiorot, being the beast that she is, she's a hard hitter. She's somebody, like Senya said, Valentina, she was hoping somebody would knock Valentina out. I thought Manon Fiorot would be the one to do it, but Manon looked like she was a fish out of water in this one. She just didn't know what to do with Valentina. She didn't come in looking like the beast that we've known her to be. I would say that in her last fights, I mean, her last 5 fights have been unanimous decisions. She hasn't knocked anybody out since 2021, and that was a standing TKO over Tabitha Ricci. So other than that, it's been unanimous decision wins over Mayra Bueno Silva, Jennifer Maia, Caitlin Sermana, Rose Namajunas, and Erin Blanchfield. And there was nothing big happening in any of these fights. So that's kind of what I was worried about with Manon coming into this fight against Valentina and the kind of champ that she is. So yeah, we didn't see a knockout here. Shevchenko kind of just had her way with Manon and played with her food a little bit. She landed some great punches. You know, she had maybe a couple marks on her face, but nothing big. Manon just couldn't put together anything that mattered and get any big shots landed on Shevchenko. Shevchenko busted her nose open early, and that's kind of what did Manon Fiorot in. So you see the knockdown here with Shevchenko after hitting her in the nose for a couple times after she busted it open. The first time when she busted her nose open was kind of a grazing shot, and it was kind of weird, but you saw her nose go sideways. You're like, damn, that nose is fucked. And yeah, that affected Manon Fiorot in a major way. She got knocked down, she got taken advantage of, and she got beat. So that's all there was to that. And that leads us to a little more of an exciting fight. they're just Shevchenko haters in the chat. No, I'm just kidding. I understand it. I get it, because there's those fighters that I'm like, I want to see that motherfucker get knocked out. And she looked like a mess in her custom gear. You know, it's weird because I saw the shorts and stuff and the top when they first released it, and in the pictures they didn't look that bad. But then I saw it in the fight and I was just like, it's whatever. Nothing crazy. I didn't really like it that much either, to be honest. So yeah, you're not wrong there. Yeah, that brings us to the main event. Jack Della Maddalena versus Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad came in talking mad shit like he always does. You know, this was his first title defense, and unfortunately for him, it wasn't a defense because he lost, and he just did not. He just couldn't do anything. Jack was the better man in all aspects of the fight. I don't feel like Bilal put up much of a fight at all. It looked like he got frustrated early and just couldn't dig himself out of the hole. You could see the damage that was put on him by Jack. But Jack Della is a big guy for his, you know, he doesn't look like the most like dangerous person, but he's fucking good when he puts things together. You know, he was injured for a while and he came back in a big way. He kind of got this fight off of the injury to Shavkat Rakhmonov. He was supposed to be the one that fought in this fight, and instead, you know, because of the injury, they put Jack Della in there, and his last fight was a TKO win over Gilbert Burns, who's fighting this week actually. That was back in March of last year, and he kind of had to lay off because of the injury and stuff, and then he comes back to fight in a title fight and get a big win to become the new welterweight champion of the UFC. That's a crazy picture on that top left. I love that picture. That's what I use for the thumbnail too. But yeah, I love that picture. That's flying knee with Bilal being all bloody. It's just a dope ass picture, man. And just a great representation of this fight. And then you get Jack Della with the belt there at the bottom, and you, as you see, his eye did get busted up though. So Bilal landed some shit, but Jack is just too strong, and he did a great job, and he's the new welterweight champion for the UFC. All right, let's get to this week's event happening in Las Vegas at the Apex. We got Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales, which I believe was supposed to be on UFC 315, but they moved it over to the main event of this card, probably because they needed a main event for this card. It's a damn shame it's happening in the Apex, because I think it would have been a fun fight to happen with a big crowd. But I mean, I think it's going to be a good fight either way. Gilbert Burns has a lot of mileage on him as well. He's a guy that's been around for quite a while. fucking nice guy too. I met him at the fan expo. He's a dope dude to conversate with and meet, even though if it was just for a couple minutes. But yeah, he's a great fighter too. But man, he's got a lot of mileage on that engine. And he's been in a lot of wars, but I don't think he's done yet. But he's got a nasty up and coming phenom like Michael Morales, who is on a big streak, and I believe he's undefeated. Yeah, 17-0 overall. We'll get to the details on all that, but he's undefeated right now, so that's gonna be tough for Gilbert Burns. So we'll see what happens there, but I'll get into that fight as we move. Let's look at the prelims real quick. With the first fight of the night being in the women's strawweight division, we got Luana Pinheiro versus Tisha Pennington, formerly Tisha Torres, but she's now married to Raquel Pennington, the former champion. And this is happening in the women's strawweight division. We got Pennington 14-7, Pinheiro's 11-4 to start off the night. Next up, we have Hun Sung Park, if I can say my words correctly, versus Carlos Hernandez in the men's flyweight division. Hun Sung Park is 9-0, so undefeated coming in against Carlos Hernandez, who's 10-4. He's 3-3 in the UFC though against Park, who's 2-0 in the UFC. And here's the thing, undefeated fighters this year, I saw a stat where like 22 undefeated fighters have lost their O this year, which is fucking nuts. So undefeated fighters have not fared well in 2025. We've had a couple of the big names continue on that undefeated streak, like Ian Machado Gary and a couple other guys in there. But yeah, a lot of undefeated fighters have lost that O this year, which is crazy. So just because you're undefeated doesn't mean shit, because you might have met your match. But I don't know about this one. Park being 9-0, Hernandez being 10-4, 3-3 in the UFC right now. Yeah, that his undefeated record might stay intact on that one. Next up, back to the women's strawweight division, we got Denise Gomes versus Elise Reed. 8-4 for Reed, 10-3 for Gomes in that fight. And then a lot of women fights on this card. As you can see, the first 4 fights of the night, 3 of them are in the women's division. This one being in the bantamweight division, though, we got Luana Santos versus Tainara Lisboa. Lisboa is 7-2. Santos is 8-2 in the women's bantamweight division. So yeah, I mean, that could be a good one. But the women's fights sometimes are tough, especially when there's a lot of them on the card. If they all go to decision, and in the way that they tend to go to decision, it could be a long night. But the last 3 fights on the prelims, we got Yadier Delville, who's undefeated, 8-0, versus Connor Matthews, 7-3. So once again, another undefeated fighter looking to continue. This is his UFC debut though, so he's 8-0 outside of the UFC, facing a pretty decent name in Connor Matthews. But Connor Matthews is 0-2 in the UFC. He had a lot of promise coming in, but has not won a fight yet in the UFC. So we'll see how that one goes down. Next up, we got Jared Gordon versus Thiago Moises in the men's lightweight division. 20-7 for Gordon, 19-8 for Moises. Both of them are 8-6 in the UFC, so that should be a good one there. And then the last fight in the prelims, which is weird. I would have thought the Gordon versus Moises fight would be the prelim, the one to end the prelims, but instead we got Mateus Camilo versus Gabe Green. This is Camilo's first fight in the UFC, so his UFC debut. He's 9-2 overall, and Gabe Green's 11-5, but his record in the UFC is 2-3. And that brings us over to the main card. Ah, shit, and I pushed the wrong button. Hold on, let me fix that. That's what I get. I got lost in what I was doing, and I didn't pay attention before I hit the button. Okay. So first up in the main, Zell Costa, the dude with the crazy hair. He's got different hair every time he fights. Biggest things to note here with Rosa. Well, he's 31-11 overall, 9-7 in the UFC, but look at that submission category, 14-0. It's always impressive when you see those double digits for wins without ever being submitted in any of those divisions, or any of those categories, I should say. He's on a 3-fight win streak, but so is Costa. Costa's 4-2 in the UFC. 7-2 by KO TKO, 8-2 by sub, 8-3 by decision. Nothing really stands out there. It's impressive that Rosa has double-digit wins in KO TKOs and submissions and never been submitted. So, audio is skipping all of a sudden. Oh, that's not good. Okay. Hopefully, it straightens out. Let me take. You sure it's not my song? The music in the background sounds a little funky, so I just listened back. It might be the music trend. Anyway, hopefully we'll push through. But we got Rosa versus Costa, and I'm thinking Juicy J's got this one, but Costa can be a tough opponent as well. Let's look at the 3 fights for Rosa. Is Ricardo Ramos, Christian Rodriguez, and Darren Elkins. All finishes in the first round for Julian Erosa. So 2 by submission and 1 by TKO. So that's something to look at there. Costa's got 3 wins in a row as well, with wins over Christian Rodriguez, Andre Fili, and Shilian Nurendembeki. And 2 of those are by finish, by submission, and his last one against C-Rod was a unanimous decision win there. Let's move on to the next one. Is Dustin Stoltzfus versus Nursultan Ruziboyev. We got Stoltzfus 3-5 in the UFC. That's tough. Ruziboyev is 3-1. Nothing really stands out for Stoltzfus, honestly. He is coming off a win. We got 6-2 in both submissions and decisions, 3-2 by KO TKO. But look at, you got double digits by KO TKO and double digits in submissions for wins for Ruziboyev. And he's only lost once in both of those categories as well. His decision record is not great, 2-7, but he's coming off a win as well. So let's take a look at that. Who Stoltzfus won against in his last fight. That was Marc-Andre Barriault. That was oh, that's right. He knocked out Marc-Andre Barriault. That was a tough loss for Barriault, even though he just came back and got the big win there in last week's pay-per-view. But yeah, he got that nasty loss back in November to Stoltzfus. But before that, I mean, Stoltz has been on a kind of a win-loss streak. So I think it is the music. That music sounds funky. That's right. It'll change here in just a second. So let's look at Ruziboyev and who he won against. Eric McConico. That was a TKO win for him. Before that, he lost to Joaquin Buckley. And he was on a 2-fight win streak to start off his UFC career. So I feel like this should be a fun fight here. Slight I forgot what I was gonna say. Slight upper hand for Ruziboyev in that one, I think. So okay, so now we got Sadiq Youssef versus Myron Santos. Youssef is 13-4 overall, 6-3 in the UFC, 1-0 by subs, never been submitted, but I mean he's only got 1 win there. 6-2 by KO TKO, 6-2 by decision. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Santos is on a 2-fight win streak. He's 2-0 in the UFC, 15-1 overall. Only has 1 loss in his entire record. So, I mean, he's looking to keep going on that streak that he's on right now. I'll take a look at how many wins in a row he has outside of the UFC as well. But check out that decisions, 7-0. No wins or losses by sub. And then 8-1 by KO TKO. Sadiq Youssef is coming off 2 losses to Diego Lopez and Edson Barbosa, 2 fucking big names. So you can't really blame him there. He just needs a little work to get past those upper echelon fighters. He lost to Barbosa by decision, lost to Diego Lopez by TKO in round 1 at UFC 300. So before that, he was on a 2-fight win streak. So he's gone 2 wins, 2 losses. So he's looking to get back in that win column. And then you got Santos, who's on a 2-fight win streak, undefeated in the UFC, only 1 loss in his entire career, and technically 4, 5, 6. He's got 6 wins in a row, but 4 of those happened outside of the UFC. So he got that big win over Khan Ofli back in August with the TKO win there, and then in his UFC debut, and then he got a split decision win over Francis Marshall earlier this year. Let's get to the co-main, and that is Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Bellato. And Craig is he's frustrating, man. He's a frustrating fighter to follow. You think he dominates at times, but then he just doesn't look good at other times, and his record says so. His UFC record, that is, with 9 wins and 9 losses, 17-9 overall. He's getting up there in age for fighting, 37. Bellato is only 1-0. He's on a 4-fight win streak between his 1 win in the UFC and outside of the UFC. 12-2 overall. Never been submitted and never lost by decision, which if you look at Paul Craig, he only has losses by decision. So that's tough. If he gets a decision, it's not looking good for Paul Craig, but he's got 13 wins by submission. He is great on the ground. He'll definitely catch you in a sub quickly if you make a mistake while you're down on the ground with him. So let's take a look at Bellato, and his last fight was a majority decision draw to Jimmy Crute. Before that, he had his first fight in the UFC was a win over Ihor Pretoria, which was pretty impressive, actually. Second round win for him there. He got a performance of the night bonus on that one, which you can see the knee and the ground and pound to Pretoria in those 2 pictures there. And then that big punch there when he was in the Contender Series. Let's look at Paul Craig with those ground skills, like I said. Yeah, he's slick on the ground. He's got a lot of good submissions, but he is on a 3-fight losing streak. But look at these names: Bo Nickel, Kyle Bohalio, and Brendan Allen. So that's tough. That's a big names on that one, and it's hard to blame him for those losses. Those are big names there. So he lost by decision to Nickel, and then by TKO to Bohalio, and by rear naked choke to Brendan Allen. Before that, he was on a 2-fight win streak with 2 finishes against Ross Cooper and Andre Muniz. So he's looking to get back in that win column. I mean, he's lucky to still be around, considering he's on a 3-fight losing streak. But you know, Paul Craig can pull a win out of nowhere. Sometimes he just comes out looking way more impressive. And it just depends on his opponent too. But Bellato, I don't know. I've heard bad things about him, but he's looked good so far. I mean, he's coming off of a draw to Jimmy Crute. So who knows how he looks in this one? I guess we'll have to wait and see what's good for this co-main event. That brings us to the main event to start wrapping this up. We got Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales. Again, Morales 17-0 overall, 5-0 in the UFC. Burns is 22-8 overall, 15-8 in the UFC. If you look at those stats, 9-0 in submissions for Burns, that stands out. Never been submitted. And Morales only has 1 submission, and he's never been submitted either, but he's also never been anything because he's undefeated. But he's got 12 wins by KO TKO, so that's pretty fucking impressive there. He's on I said 5-fight win streak because those are the 5 fights in the UFC. Technically, he's on a 17-fight win streak because he's undefeated. And Gilbert Burns is coming off of like 3 losses in a row, so that is fucking tough. Going up against a young undefeated fighter. I don't know what the UFC was thinking in this one, but probably the fact that, you know, Gilbert Burns is tough as fuck. He's fought a lot of big names, including Sean Brady, Jack Della Maddalena, who's now the champ, Bilal Muhammad, who was just the champ. So those are his last 3 losses. All big names, one of the highest contenders in the division, as well as the former champ and the current champ. Before that, he was on a 2-fight win streak with wins over Jorge Masvidal and Neil Magny. He had that crazy fight with Khamzat Chimaev that he lost, but it was a fight of the night, and they went to war on that one. It was a close fight, and Gilbert was the first guy to really make Khamzat look human, really. So, I mean, he's gotten other big wins, though, over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Tyron Woodley, Damian Maia, Jake Shields, Eve Edwards. I mean, he's got a lot of big wins under his belt, fought a lot of big names. He's a vet for sure. But he's coming up against this young up-and-comer, Michael Morales, who's undefeated, like I said. His 5 wins in the UFC: Neil Magny, Jake Matthews, Max Griffin, Adam Fugit, and Trevin Giles. All names we know, like recognizable names, some of them pretty big, you know, Neil Magny especially. And that was his last fight, where he got a round 1 ground and pound finish against Neil Magny. So he's got the skills. He's got the edge on the age. He wins on his feet a lot, never been submitted, even though Gilbert has a lot of submissions under his belt. This could be tough for Burns, but if Burns comes out looking like the vet that he is and looking like how he has in the past, as well as we know him to be able to fight, maybe he can break this 3-fight win streak and hand the youngster his first loss, as we've seen so many times this year with undefeated fighters. But I feel like it should be a fun fight. It might be over quickly if Morales gets the upper hand on Burns, but Burns is pretty durable, and when he gets finished, it doesn't usually happen quickly. So he'll go to war with people, and he'll fight it out, and he'll hang in there as much as he can, and he'll go out on his shield. So it's going to be a tough one for Morales to win quickly, but he might come out with the win, being that he's undefeated and the younger guy, and all of that. So should be interesting, and it should hopefully be a fun card. Let's see what the Fight Wheel predictions have for us. The Fight Wheel did not do well last week, especially when I believe there was only 1 win, and that's pretty bad. That's probably the worst the Fight Wheel has done. It predicted Manon Fiorot to win in the co-main against Valentina, which didn't happen. It predicted Bilal Muhammad to retain his title, didn't happen. Kyle Prepelic to start off the night in the main card, and he lost to Benoit Saint Denis. Predicted Jose Aldo, which was close, but Ayman Zahabi got that win, and the only one it predicted correctly was Natalia Silva getting the win over former champ Alexa Grasso. So that was the only one it got right. So that's definitely the worst the Fight Wheel has done in predictions since I started. The worst it had done before was 4-2. So yeah, we'll see how it does this week. Let's get started here to end the pod with some Fight Wheel predictions for UFC Vegas 106, and we start with Paul Craig ending his 3-fight losing streak to get the win over Bellato. So let's pull that one out, and Adolfo Bellato, delete that, and let's see what the next prediction is for the Fight Wheel, because I don't make predictions anymore because I suck at it. So I might as well leave it to chance, like this. Nursultan Ruziboyev getting the win over Dustin Stoltzfus. Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is he fighting? So Ruziboyev, the Fight Wheel predicts getting the win over Stoltzfus. We'll get rid of that name. 3 more fights to go. Let's see what's next for predictions from the Fight Wheel. We got Melquizel Costa getting the win over Juicy J, Julian Erosa. I'm not sure about that one. These other two, well, Paul Craig is a toss-up too, I guess. But Erosa, man, I think he's getting that win. So this one is probably going to be wrong. Let's see what we got next. 2 more fights. including the main event. And it looks like Gilbert Burns breaking the undefeated record of Michael Morales and his 3-fight losing streak. According to the fight wheel, Gilbert Burns will get the win in the main event. Let me delete that name and let's go with the last prediction here. Sadiq Youssef versus Myron Santos. Let's see what the fight wheel predicts. Myron Santos getting the win. That's not too far-fetched. So that's your predictions from the fight wheel. We got Paul Craig, Nursultan Ruziboyev, Melquizael Costa, Gilbert Burns, and Myron Santos getting the wins in the main card for UFC Vegas 106. And that about does it. Went a little long, but not too long. Nothing too far out of the ordinary, I guess. But yeah, that was fun. Got some shit off my chest. Talked about the state of the MMA right now. The state of MMA right now as an entirety, as a sport. I just needed to vent a little bit about that one. But yeah, recap of UFC 315. And you, Jack Della Maddalena, getting the win over Bilal Muhammad. Valentina Shevchenko retaining her belt. We got UFC Vegas 106 this weekend on Saturday night, happening 4 p.m. Arizona time for the main card start. So that's because it's in the Apex. It usually starts a little earlier. Prelim card starts at 1 p.m. So a little bit of an earlier start for these. Hopefully you'll get to watch them and enjoy them. Hopefully there's some good fights on there. Trent, I hope the audio wasn't skipping too much. If it really was, or it might have just been the music, I don't know. Hopefully it stopped for you. I listened in a little bit and it sounded like it was fine, so who knows. But thanks for the heads up. I appreciate that always. Thank you to Senya too, by the way, for joining in as well in the chat. Simply kudos in there as well. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all for the support. That's it for me. Enjoy the fights this weekend. I'm out of here. Come back next Thursday. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Come back next Thursday for a recap of this weekend's event, as well as a preview of the next weekend's event and any other combat sports news happening around MMA and all the rest of the combat sports too. That's it. I'm out. Take it easy. Peace.